Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Chao Games Forecast. Last time we covered February games and it was a jam-packed month. It was just game after game after game, and we even got a shadow drop with Metroid Prime Remastered. March is more of a quiet month, but it is still scary to the wallet, and it has a very surprisingly deadly theme to it. With that being said, I'm your host Itachi, and let's get into it. And the first release of the month is actually today, and it's DLC. Today is the day that we get the Dead Cells Return to Castlevania DLC. It features characters and settings from the Castlevania series. You still play as the Beheaded, but you do get to use items and weapons from Castlevania. And it looks really cool. I actually haven't had the chance to play Dead Cells yet. It was something I wanted to do back when it came out, but I just never got around to it. There's just too many games to do. But it is on my backlog and I do plan on playing it, and this Castlevania DLC is a good motivator. According to the DLC description, there are 14 weapons, 51 songs, 20 outfits, and 3 boss fights, and they are all from Castlevania, so that is all good stuff to dive into. Dead Cell fans continue to eat well, Castlevania fans seem happy with how the series is being portrayed, and it overall looks really fast paced and really fun. If I do decide to get into Dead Cells, then I'm definitely going to try this DLC. It seems like a lot of indie games are getting DLC lately. Last year we got Cuphead, and this year we're getting Return to Castlevania with Dead Cells. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the next indie game to get really cool DLC is, but right now, it's Dead Cells, and I hope people enjoy it. Next up for the month and our first full game is Bayonetta Origins, Syriza and the Lost Demon, and there is a big gap between Dead Cells and this one, being from March 6th to March 17th. As the title suggests, this is Bayonetta's origin story, and it has a very interesting title. It has a long one. It's I think this implies that they're gonna try to turn Bayonetta Origins into its own series. But that's a topic for a different day. Anyways, we play as young Syriza, and I assume it's going to show how she becomes Bayonetta, since it's Bayonetta Origins. It's kinda in the title. But anyway, ignoring everything that I'm just assuming about the game, this looks to be a puzzle action game. Nothing has really grabbed me about the gameplay, but it looks like a good time. The visuals, on the other hand, have grabbed me. They got me really hooked on them. I think they look beautiful. I've seen really divisive takes on them, but I think it looks good. But as much as I love the look of Bayonetta Origins, I don't think I'm going to be getting it. I still haven't played Bayonetta 3, and I did hear that this game is supposed to tie something from that game's story. I don't know what, but to be safe, I won't be playing it, at least not right away. There is also that $60 price tag that I find really hard to justify for this game. I have not played the game right before it, and it looks like it's supposed to be a smaller title than Bayonetta 3. So why am I going to spend the equivalent amount on this game? I don't know. I know we're not supposed to judge things or judge prices based off how they look, but it's hard when Bayonetta 3 just came out and it's the same price. Either way, this was a pleasant surprise when it was announced at the Game Awards. It's nice to be seeing it come so soon, and I hope Bayonetta fans really enjoy it. This is very different from what is usually done with the series, actually from everything it's been doing, but it looks solid. It looks solid, so I hope it's good. Not too long after Bayonetta Origins, on March 22nd, we get Have a Nice Death, another indie game mentioned, but this time not DLC. Similar to what I said last month about Blanc, I've had my eyes on this game for a while, since it was announced actually. It's a 2D roguelike where you play as Death, and I'm ready to play it. The style and gameplay caught my attention immediately. It reminds me of Hollow Knight and Hades, Hollow Knight with its presentation and Hades with its action. I'm not saying that Have a Nice Death is only taking elements from those games. Those two are just the closest comparisons I can think of when talking about this game at the moment. But even without comparing this game to others, it still looks great. I don't know how to really describe it, it just looks really, really appealing to me. The action, the smoothness of it, it just looks like it flows perfectly. And one thing I want to point out before moving on is that I love that there's an excuse to why it's a roguelike. Death can't die, so every time you're defeated, you just start at the beginning of the labyrinth. It's a minor detail, but it's one that I love. I love it when games do that. It makes sense for roguelikes to do this. Roguelikes are a genre that I really haven't dabbled too much into, but I'm excited to go into this one. Though really the only one I have played fully is Hades. So it's going to be an interesting experience. It's at a price tag that is much more appealing than $60, only $25. I assume it's going to have a lot less content than most $60 games, but it looks fun, and I'm excited to dive into it. On March 24th, only 2 days after Have a Nice Death, is Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is probably the biggest release of the month. Most, if not all, eyes are on this remake because this is extremely worrying to a lot of people, but it is also extremely exciting at the same time. Resident Evil 2 Remake was fantastic, and 3 Remake would have been just as good if not for the removed content. It was inevitable for them to do Resident Evil 4, but the reception to its announcement was mixed. It was basically a blog post, and people were wondering if Resident Evil 4 even needed the remake. And that's understandable. It's a game that people love to this day. It's hailed to be one of the best games of all time, and it's still available on every modern platform. Even so, people are still super excited for it, and I'm included in that group of people. I, though, am of the unpopular opinion that Resident Evil 4, specifically with its controls, hasn't aged as well as people would like it to. Its controls and quality of life aren't super good, which can turn people off if it's their first time playing it. It wasn't my first time playing it, but it was my first time trying to fully beat it. However, this remake can solve all that. They could add better controls than it looks like they are, and they could add a lot of quality of life features, which it looks like they are. This remake is either going to be really, really good or really, really disappointing. I do not see how there could be a middle ground for this. Either way, I'm excited for it. A lot of people are really excited for it, and it's one of the few games that I'm getting at launch this year. And it does definitely help that this is going to be a $60 game rather than a $70 game. In a time where the industry is moving to the $70 standard, I'm still really happy to see some studios do $60 games. I know probably come next year, everything is probably going to be $70, at least everything besides indie games. All AAA games are probably going to be $70, but I'm trying to slow that down as much as possible, so I'm really happy to see Capcom doing this. Again, this is one of the games that I'm going to be getting at launch this year. There aren't that many, but this one is definitely one of them. But before moving on to the final game, have you guys seen Leon and Ada in this game? Oh my god, they're so hot! Anyway, the final game of the month on March 28th, which is also a remake, is The Last of Us Part 1 on PC. Just hear me out. I normally would not add ports to the game's forecast, but I wanted to put this one just because of how important I think it is. By the time it releases, The Last of Us's HBO show will be over. Like, just barely over, I think. There's 3 episodes left. Yeah, it'll have just been barely over. So people will be looking for excuses to go back to the first game, and some will even play part 2 just to see what happens next. This is a genius marketing tactic by Sony. Part 1 releasing on PC is going to attract a whole new audience to the game, and it could even lead more people to buying a PS5 for part 2. Or a PS4, but I think it would make more sense for a PS5. Anyways, they could lead people to buying a PS4 or a PS5. It's a multi-layered strategy that I think people are underestimating, and I think people are underestimating it because of how unnecessary this remake was in the first place. Like, come on, the original game came out on PS3, it got a remaster on the PS4, it's on the PS5 PS Plus line, that's a mouthful. Anyways, it's on that line for free, and it's on modern platforms. It's unnecessary. Wow, this sounds like Resident Evil 4 Remake. But at least they're changing stuff in Resident Evil 4 Remake. They barely did anything to The Last of Us Part 1. Anyways, that's a different topic. We're not talking about how unnecessary the remake is. We're talking about how genius of a marketing strategy this is. I think that people are really underestimating it. This is gonna blow up on PC, especially in the modding scene. I'm not getting it. I got it as a birthday gift last year, so I don't have any reasons to get it. But I do think it's an important release, and I do think it's gonna be big. And that covers the games I found notable or I'm looking forward to in March 2023. Even though March doesn't have as many big hitters as February, there's still some good stuff in here. And it had a strangely deadly theme to it. Every game I mentioned had some dark theme to it. Dead Cells, Bayonetta, Have a Nice Death, Resident Evil 4, Last of Us. They all have some dead thing in it. Huh. That is a weird coincidence. Anyways, I'm sure I missed some stuff, so let me know what I missed in the comments below, and let me know what games you are looking forward to as well. This was the Chao Games Forecast for March 2023, and we'll see you in the next one.